Affectionately coined the mother of beauty, Tati Westbrook is a YouTuber and professional makeup artist with a passionate fan community. While of course she's a beauty creator first, she's also notorious for heated YouTube drama. Most notably, her online feud with James Charles that gained her millions of subscribers. It was spicy, that's for sure. So spicy that it prompted a year-long hiatus from her channel.
I'll be back.
But for better or worse, Tati's back. And now with a newfound passion for nutrition, as evidenced by her controversial Q&A video, I was making myself sick. I know I say this often, but this could be the understatement of the year. There is a lot here to unpack. Hey everyone, I'm Abbey Sharp. Welcome to Abby's Kitchen. In today's video, we'll be taking a look at YouTuber and makeup artist Tati Westbrook's video, I Was Making Myself Sick. And you can pause the screen or look at the description to check out my disclaimer, including a trigger warning to those with current or previous experiences with disordered eating, as I will be discussing a wide range of very restrictive behaviors. And if you are not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button and don't forget to follow me on TikTok and Instagram at Abby's Kitchen. Before we get into today's video, we're gonna play another round of Abby's Daily Hunger Crushing Combo. This time featuring ice cream, because sometimes I just need my fix. So we've got our ice cream going down. I'm adding in some various frozen berries that I just thawed out. Got some blueberries, blackberries, cherries, all the goodies. Then I've got a little almond butter going down. And I've got my white chocolate berry Built Bar granola bar. You guys know I love these because they taste like chocolate because they're made with real chocolate. Though white chocolate specifically, she just hits different. This bar has 15 grams of protein, so it's a great topper for my ice cream along with the fiber in the berries and the healthy fats in the almond butter. So if you guys wanna try Built Bar for yourself, check out my link in the description and use my promo code AbbeySharp15 to get 15% off of your order. Now, you guys were all up in my DMs requesting that I review this video, and trust me, it is so rife with misinformation that I could barely fit it all into like one succinct video. So get your wellness bingo cards ready, folks.
Oh my God. Bingo!
Let's dive in.
This is just my story of my up and down from having been much heavier to having been so skinny. I never had an issue with any eating disorder or anything like that. So I want to make that clear. This has been kind of a frustration through my life to be up and down with my hormones and my weight. And we're going to talk about how I have now landed in a place where I feel like, yes, like I can sleep at night. I am gaining actual muscle. I am eating like a queen. I enjoy the food that I eat. It is delicious. I feel so truly nourished that I wake up. I'm excited for the food that I eat. I'm excited to move my body. I don't feel achy and painy and foggy.
I kind of feel like this is basically how almost all sales pitches for pseudoscience diets start off. But I'm going to try to keep an open mind here. Let's take a look at some of Tati's controversial claims.
Now I'm a little more aware of microplastics in this past year, just kind of going on this deep dive. What I want to purify out of my system, what I think is disrupting hormones or potentially causing other issues. So with water, I think filtering is a really, really important thing to do. I do not drink tap water. Other things like byproducts of other pharmaceuticals, chlorine, arsenic, you may consider getting a filter.
Now, while we still need high quality human research to really understand the mechanisms in full, we do know that microplastic consumption is a growing public health concern due to its potential hormone disrupting effects. Now, it's also true that much of our tap water today has been shown to contain small amounts of microplastics. But when researchers put contaminated water samples through a water filter that could potentially remove particles as small as 2.5 microns, 41.5% of the samples were still contaminated. This was basically confirmed by Consumer Labs reports when they tested popular water filter pitchers and found a wide range in microplastic reduction. In one case, the pitcher actually increased microplastic particles by 1,200%. As for chlorine, arsenic, fluoride, and other compounds found in small amounts in some tap water, different types of filters will remove different types of contaminants. So whether or not you opt for one will ultimately depend on your priorities and goals. But I also want to remind you that, at least in most jurisdictions, tap water is still completely fine to drink. The United States has very strict regulations on tap water to ensure that levels of these contaminants are well under safe limits. So assuming your jurisdiction or country has safe regulated water, any tap water is going to be better than consuming less water out of fear. It's also worth pointing out that there are microplastic particles in almost everything we come into contact with, including healthy fruits and vegetables. So if you do want to reduce your consumption, I would focus on reducing foods or drink that are less essential for good health than, let's say, water. Things like single-use water bottles, storage wraps, plastic containers, skincare products, etc.
If you've been with me for a long time, you understand how devastated I was to find out that I had a gluten intolerance. I absolutely don't think gluten is great for you.
First of all, unless you are diagnosed with celiac or a sensitivity to gluten, there is no quality research to suggest that gluten is inherently not great for everyone. In fact, most gluten-free foods are likely less great for the masses in general because they are usually lower in iron, fiber, B vitamins, magnesium, and selenium compared to their gluten-filled counterparts. Second, there is no recommended methods of testing for gluten sensitivity or intolerance. You'll see lots of blood spot or inflammation or food intolerance IgG tests marketed online, but none of them are validated or accurate. In fact, all of the major health authorities recommend against using them. The only way to diagnose gluten intolerance is by exclusion. If you test for celiac and it's negative and you remove gluten from your diet and you feel better, yes, there is a chance that you may be gluten intolerant. Now, it could also alternatively be something else in the gluten-containing foods like wheat or FODMAPs, but in Tati's case specifically, we know that endometriosis and celiac disease are often intrinsically linked, likely because they are both inflammatory in nature, and it's common for autoimmune disorders to overlap. Now, a lot of folks never get a proper diagnosis for celiac because you have to consume a lot of gluten to properly do the test, and this can be very uncomfortable for a lot of folks who are struggling with their digestion. Regardless of the specific diagnosis here, if Tati feels better going gluten-free, it totally makes sense to keep it up. But please, let's stop perpetuating misinformation about perfectly nutritious foods.
I have heard that through the fermentation process with sourdough that I might be able to get away with eating sourdough homemade products.
So it is true that the fermentation process of sourdough bread partially breaks down gluten, making it easier to tolerate in folks with gluten sensitivity. However, this does not make it gluten-free. So if we're talking celiac, it's still a no. If we're talking mild sensitivity, then it might be a more tolerated choice.
I now have my suspicions that seed oils were definitely also a factor in how I was digesting. They're very inflammatory.
Influencers love to harp on the inflammatory properties of seed oils because of their omega-6 content. And while there is some research to confirm that too much omega-6 in the diet may increase inflammation, the larger body of high-quality evidence suggests that omega-6 fats do not have a significant effect. One 2012 systematic review even looked at the effects of omega-6s on inflammatory markers and found no strong link to suggest that it increased inflammation. What we can say though is that most of us are getting more omega-6 fats than omega-3 fats from the Western diet, which throws off the ideal 4-to-1 ratio for reducing inflammation. Interestingly, one of the most commonly demonized seed oils, canola, has actually a very favorable 2-to-1 ratio of omega-6s to omega-3 fats, along with very heart-healthy monounsaturated fats. So bottom line, focus on getting fat and oil variety and diversity to get the most diverse array of fatty acids in your diet. Next.
And I also feel like glyphosate in a lot of the, in all wheat products, which is a weed killer.
All right. Let's do it. Wellness culture loves a good headline, and the idea of a serial killer, aka carcinogen, in our oatmeal or Cheerios always hits home hard. I think glyphosate's scary reputation can ultimately be linked back to some older studies linking glyphosate to some potential cancer risks in agricultural farmers who had the highest levels of direct exposure to the herbicide. However, the vast majority of research in this area has actually found no significant risk at all. But let's just say theoretically that there is a risk of inhaling large amounts of glyphosate in the field every single day at work. This will never be the same as just like eating a bowl of Cheerios. We would need to consume hundreds of servings of these foods with glyphosate residues to even meet the acceptable daily intake of 1 milligram per kilogram of body weight. In fact, Food Science Babe did the legwork for us and calculated that you would need to consume 2,355 servings of oatmeal every day to meet even the defined safe amount. The truth is, glyphosate is one of the most extensively studied chemicals and has long been considered one of the safest herbicides on the market. Research has consistently shown that the trace amounts of exposure to glyphosate from food is not a significant risk to our health. And when we are exposed to these residues from food, it actually does not even accumulate in the body and is completely eliminated within 24 hours of exposure. So, as is the case with most chemical exposures in the food system, the dose makes the poison. And the dose in this case is pretty low.
I am suspecting now that I have an issue with how my body handles oxalates. And basically, that is a vegetable's defense system that leaches nutrients from your body, hard to digest, can create crystals in the body. Like, you have to eat your greens. But for me, removing them from my diet and hiking up the fat and the protein has been the biggest win of my life.
Oh dear Lord, are we going carnivore now?
Bone marrow is amazing.
Okay, let's clear this mess up together. Oxalates, which are an anti-nutrient found in plant foods, do not leach nutrients from the body, but rather they reduce the absorption of calcium specifically. As for the claim that they create crystals in the body, this is really only for those who are already prone to calcium oxalate kidney stones, who are advised to limit their intake of oxalate-containing foods. For everyone else, oxalates can be safely consumed with no issues, and we can even reduce the oxalate content of foods through cooking. And again, Tati is only speculating that this is an issue for her. If she feels better eliminating vegetables, it's much more likely related to their FODMAP load, since endometriosis also tends to be associated with IBS. IBS or not, we actually would never recommend people eliminate all vegetables. This may temporarily reduce some digestive symptoms, but it would likely wipe out a lot of our beneficial gut bacteria, which would only worsen gut health long term. Fiber is absolutely key for supporting a healthy gut, and vegetables and grains are some of the best sources of that fiber.
I don't want to say I'm carnivore, but I'm definitely animal-based. I do still have some vegetables, protein, high saturated fat, good sugars from fruits. I eat a lot of honey, maple, vegetables here and there. I eat a lot of eggs. I feel that eating raw cheese and doing dairy has been incredibly beneficial for my overall health. They're just some things you can't get from plants.
I'm sorry, didn't we go over this with Carnivore MD? If you guys missed me taking that down, check out my video right here. But while we're still getting some carbs, fiber, and antioxidants from fruit, we're talking about severely limited food options. The reason she feels better eating animal-based isn't because of the animal food she's added, but it's because she's cut out so many possible triggers, even though most of them probably aren't triggering at all. I also want to note that there is no clinical benefit to eating more saturated fat. It doesn't appear that there's a major harm in saturated fats like we used to think, as I discussed in my video right here, but we do know that replacing some saturated fats with unsaturated fats or whole grains is healthier than adding more saturated fat. We also have some evidence linking red meat consumption with endometriosis risk, so generally speaking here, this does not seem like a super smart plan. Ditto with the raw milk. I mean, please do not drink raw milk. Raw milk is responsible for dozens of foodborne illness outbreaks every year, and its potential health benefits will never outweigh the risk. Next.
Intermittent fasting, I think, can work really well for men. I think for women, our hormones are so up and down and they move around in the different parts of the month. And I think that it can be really hard on your hormones. So for me, I don't intermittent fast. This for me is a huge sign of health that I wake up in the morning and I'm hungry.
So I have a whole video on the impact of intermittent fasting on hormones, which you can watch right here. But in short, intermittent fasting is thought to potentially increase the risk of menstrual dysfunction and hormonal irregularities because it increases the likelihood of going under the critical threshold of energy availability. In simpler words, because intermittent fasting often results in eating fewer calories less frequently, it can put you in a chronic state of low energy available for hormonal regulation. Now, this effect will obviously depend on how, what, and how much you eat, plus if and when you are exercising. So intermittent fasting can be very safe and even beneficial for a lot of folks. But we do know that the reproductive system is very sensitive to energy imbalances. And if we're doing too long a fast while also in a calorie deficit, it can potentially do some harm.
I was saying I cut out Starbucks because I realized the kind of milk they use, I want control of the quality that I was putting in the coffee. I want control of the quality of the coffee beans. Coffee beans are almost always sprayed with glyphosate. So in the effort of removing that and kind of limiting mold exposure.
So there is some concern that coffee contains mycotoxins from mold if coffee beans are not stored properly. However, as I discussed in my coffee video right here, while research has found small amounts of mycotoxins in some coffee beans, the amounts are significantly below what is considered safe for human consumption. In fact, one study found that drinking 4 cups of coffee only provided 2% of the total amount of toxin exposure that is considered to be safe. Just 2%. Ultimately, the dose makes the poison, and you would have to drink an excessive and clinically very dangerous amount of coffee to experience any adverse effects. It's also worth noting that we are exposed to mycotoxins from food that we eat every single day, including nuts, fruits, whole grains, spices, chocolate, and even human breast milk. And we also discussed the whole glyphosate thing. It's not a major concern.
I think that the bioavailability of animal protein is just like next level. I feel like I was eating a lot of foods that just weren't sticking. Like your body just doesn't want to accept it. It can have so many grams of one particular nutrient, but if your body doesn't know what to do with it, well, good luck. When you eat eggs, organs, when you're eating meat, you are actually eating something the body knows what to do with.
When something sounds vague and made up like this, it's because it probably is.
Why the you lying? Why you always lying?
Yes, it's true that certain nutrients like iron are more bioavailable from animal sources compared to plant-based sources, but the body is well equipped to digest and absorb nutrients from all foods, assuming you don't have an intolerance, allergy, sensitivity, or gut disorder that impairs the digestion of that specific food. There is no evidence or even hypothetical reason why your body would know what to do with organ meat, but not know what to do with broccoli. Folks, our bodies are smart as
Oh, this is a really good one. Did your diet change help your endo symptoms? Like my hormones are in such a better place.
So to bring it all together, here's my professional opinion on why Tati likely feels her best self on this flexible carnivore diet. For one, by eliminating vegetables and gluten-containing foods, she's completely limited her exposure to high FODMAP foods, a small number of which may be exacerbating her digestive symptoms. However, this would be far from the best long-term diet for endometriosis management. Fiber and antioxidants in vegetables and whole grains actually help to reduce our estrogen levels and inflammation, so these are often considered integral components of a healthy endo diet. And as I already mentioned, excessive red meat intake is also associated with higher endometriosis risk. I imagine that part of the rationale for the red meat is for healthy iron levels, which is another common endometriosis diet recommendation, but we can still see this benefit without as much risk by including things like fish, seafood, poultry, and eggs, plus plant-based sources paired with vitamin C rich fruits and veg. A good diet for endometriosis, IBS, and other inflammatory conditions should ultimately be highly individualized and will depend on the unique triggers of that person. But we would never suggest cutting out full food groups to find relief, especially when those foods have so many anti-inflammatory properties. So please, if you're struggling on your own health journey, I get that it can be so tempting to see a video like this and just follow suit. But a beauty mom is not a dietitian, so please be cautious whose advice you follow. And on that note, that's all that I have for you guys today. I would love to hear your thoughts on who or what you'd like to see me review next. Subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time on Abby's Kitchen. Bye!